Imagine standing in the dark, surrounded by flashing lights and booming bass, but you cannot move. Your arms are locked tightly to your sides, and the sheer pressure of the bodies around you makes every breath a desperate fight for oxygen. The music keeps playing, but you have entirely lost control of your own movements. This was the reality on November 5th, 2021. 50,000 people gathered at the Astroworld Music Festival in Houston, Texas. By the end of the night, 10 of them were dead. Every large permitted event operates on a hidden mathematical contract regarding volume and space. Planners calculate exactly how much physical square footage is required to safely absorb the maximum allowed number of human bodies. But if a crowd exceeds that capacity and crosses a specific density threshold, a terrifying shift occurs. The group stops behaving like a collection of individuals making their own choices. Instead, the mass begins to obey the laws of fluid dynamics. A catastrophic failure in physical boundaries transformed the festival grounds into a trap, unleashing an uncontrollable force that individuals were powerless to resist. To understand why those boundaries failed, we have to look 10 hours before the headlining set even began. The foundational safety metric of the entire festival was destroyed the moment the gates opened. Fans crashed through the entrance on Friday morning, metal detectors were trampled, and the limited private security forces on site were completely overrun. Guards admitted to attendees that they simply were not paid enough to physically stop the flood of undocumented fans sprinting into the grounds. NRG Park was legally approved for a strict maximum capacity of 50,000 people. When the security perimeter collapsed, that cap disappeared entirely. The true number of bodies inside the festival became a dangerous, untracked unknown. Law enforcement saw the danger escalating early. Houston Police Chief Troy Finner even visited headliner Travis Scott's trailer during the day to warn him about how rowdy the growing crowds were getting. By failing to maintain a hard numerical ceiling on attendees, the festival had already lost its primary defense against critical mass. At 8:30 p.m., the layout of the festival accelerated the danger. All 8 daytime artists had been booked back-to-back on a single secondary stage, keeping the main stage completely empty all day. This animated schematic shows the festival layout. When the final secondary act finished, tens of thousands of fans, plus all the undocumented attendees who had broken in, began a massive migration across the park to secure a spot for Travis Scott. They were running directly into an architectural trap. The main stage area was divided by heavy metal barricades designed to create clear walkways for security and VIPs. This specific arrangement created a tight U-shaped dead end in what was known as the South Quadrant. The massive incoming wave of people from the second stage packed violently into this enclosed pocket. The fans already at the front were trapped against the steel fencing with nowhere to exit. Because of this specific barricade geometry, thousands of fans were forced into a structural funnel before a single note of the headline performance was played. At 9:06 p.m., Travis Scott takes the stage. The sudden energy of the opening song triggers a massive, violent forward surge from the very back of the crowd. In the South Quadrant, the density reaches a lethal peak. Experts estimate that the fans in this specific section were squeezed into less than 2 square feet of space per person. At this level of compression, basic physics take over. Your arms are pinned. You lose your footing. If the crowd sways left, you are carried left. Suddenly, the entire mass of people surrounding you begins to violently ripple and flow just like a powerful liquid wave. Then comes the biological horror of compressive asphyxiation. The collective weight of thousands of swaying bodies applies immense pressure to your chest. When you exhale, the surrounding crowd instantly fills that tiny fraction of space, physically preventing your lungs from expanding to take another breath. Survival at this level of compression is completely detached from personal strength. Human bodies are simply at the mercy of fluid dynamics. Down in the pit, the situation deteriorated into desperate fights for survival. Fans climbed up media towers, screaming at camera operators to cut the live feed, and begging security to stop the show as people lost consciousness around them. But the severe danger was completely camouflaged. Travis Scott's brand is built heavily around the concept of raging, encouraging fans to jump fences, shove each other, and go wild. To anyone watching from a distance, the chaotic violence looked like standard concert behavior. Behind the scenes, emergency systems were failing. At 9:38 p.m., the volume of victims entirely overwhelmed the on-site medical resources, prompting the Houston Fire Department to formally declare a mass casualty event. Yet, the show continued. At 9:54 p.m., Drake walked onto the stage as a surprise guest, injecting a lethal new surge of adrenaline into the crowd and pushing the exhausted, suffocating fans at the front even harder. A declared mass casualty disaster zone was now operating simultaneously with a blockbuster musical performance. The music finally stopped at 10:15 p.m. That was 37 minutes after a mass casualty disaster was declared, and well over an hour after the first fans began to die. To find the root cause of this systemic failure, you only need to look at the organizer's own 56-page event operations plan. It contained absolutely nothing about what to do in the event of a crowd surge. The entire security model was built on the naive assumption that the crowd would simply follow the rules. There was no mechanical contingency in place to halt a physical crush once it started. The ultimate lesson is that a crowd crush relies purely on physics. Because human bodies act as a fluid mass at high density, relying on emergency response is a death sentence. Survival depends entirely on never letting the wave form in the first place.